When we last left off, Mary and Blobbert, having made their way to the Grand Line, began their grand adventure, making their way through several islands before making a stop at Alabasta, where the pair were separated. After a long journey through the desert lands, making a new friend and confronting a mysterious enemy, the pair were reunited. Everything seemed to be back on track, until...
Something wrong? Wait, what in the...
What are you looking at? It looks like the start of our next adventure. Welcome back to another One Piece series. The adventure continues on as we explore Jaya and Skypiea. We've covered the East Blue and Alabasta already, but if you're new here, here's how we do things. The concept of this series is that we read the series as if it were for the first time, with a focus on the how and why things are presented. We definitely talk about the characters and the world building, but as the series evolved in Alabasta, I realized I really love exploring the themes of the series. Number 2. This is covering the manga only, no anime, only occasional references to the SBS. Number 3. We default to the official translations, as flawed as they are sometimes. Number 4. I try to keep the series relatively spoiler-free, though I may wink and nudge at future events. And number 5, if there is something I think is worth remembering for a future arc but I don't want to spoil why, I'll throw it in this handy-dandy chest so we can grab it to refer to later. Orientation for newcomers complete, let's jump right back into where we left off, mid-chapter 218 with a giant ship falling out of the sky. Almost more important than the ship itself is the quote accompanying it. Anything man can imagine is a possibility in reality. This quote is attributed to Willie Caron, a physicist, and due to the fact that there is no physicist with that name in the real world, at least one that we can attribute that quote to, we have to assume that it's a physicist of the One Piece world, much like the quote we see at the start of Little Garden attributed to the Bragmen. The name itself just sounds a bit too real in a world filled with people called Crocodile, Dazbones, and Dragon. But author's existence aside, why is the quote important? Because it's preparing us for the upcoming saga about what Oda will be focusing on. Returning viewers should be well aware by now, but for you newcomers, Oda uses his first chapter of any new arc and any new saga to show us what is important in the upcoming story. As the arcs have gotten longer, that is extended to the first few chapters, but the point still stands. This grand double-page spread of a ship falling out of the sky and a quote about anything that can be imagined is a possibility in reality, this upcoming saga is going to be about just that. Imagination becoming reality. We've seen some strange things so far in the One Piece story, but what we're about to experience will go beyond even that. I did cheat, however, at the end of the last series. I covered the start of this chapter because it referenced the Alabasta story and I wanted to end with Robin, but I think I had it backwards. It's not that Alabasta ended with Robin, it's that this chapter and thus this new saga starts with Robin. It starts with her failing to fulfill her dream to learn the true history, with Luffy rescuing her against her will, and with her ingratiating herself with the crew aside from Zoro. As much as this upcoming saga will be about impossibilities and imagination, it will also show us Robin, not Miss All Sunday. We'll see why Oda starts this saga bringing an archaeologist into the crew. We'll see from the starting point of having given up on her dreams and even having given up on her life, where Robin finds herself by the end of this story. We'll also see, as Oda made a point of making obvious, how the relationship between Zoro and Robin will develop. And following on from the introduction of the Grand Line and its introduction to the importance of history, well, we'll quickly learn how large a role history plays. As the crew manage to withstand the falling ship, Robin along with the log pose look upward. Their next location is a sky island, and according to the rules Oda first established upon reaching the Grand Line, they must follow the log pose to its destination. As Robin confirms in the next chapter, there will always be an island wherever the needle points, as impossible as it may seem. But remember, anything man can imagine is a possibility in reality, so every time someone says something is impossible during this arc, we need to remember that quote, and that Oda is telling us to question anything claimed to be impossible. We then get a quick demonstration on Robin's skills as an archaeologist. We understand what a cook, doctor, navigator, and even a sniper can do, but what does having an archaeologist aboard mean for the crew? Well, she reconstructs a skull to determine its age with some light medical validation from Chopper, and then figures out the purpose and origin of the ship that nearly fell on them. It might not seem like much now, but one of my favorite details of Oda's writing is that he'll introduce something in an insignificant way, only for it to become more important later. This is just a taste of what Robin can do. The main course will surely come later. Meanwhile, Luffy has found the map of the saga's namesake, Skypiea. And despite Nami nearly crushing Luffy, Usopp, and Chopper's dreams, saying that plenty of fake maps exist, it's really a case that Oda is introducing us to the first challenge the crew has to overcome this arc. How do we get to an island in the sky? They'll have to gather clues from the ship that was just there, I suppose, but it is already beneath the waves, so first order of business, how do we investigate the ship? Well, they'll just have to salvage it. Oh, and there's that word again. Impossible. Zoro says it first, and then Robin. Raising a sunken ship, but it's impossible. That ship's too big. We'll see about that in a second, but Zoro's impossible is already ruled out as the ever-inventive Usopp has devised some makeshift diving outfits, and for some reason, they decide to put the guy who literally cannot float or swim in it, but terribly poor decision-making aside, the monster trio head underwater to investigate the wreckage. But as they do, an unfamiliar face arrives, singing a song of salvage. It's Masira and his pirates ready to raise ship. Sounds like what Robin thought was impossible is definitely possible after all. There's some comedic interaction between Masira and the Straw Hats as Nami and co try to hide the fact that the trio are already aboard and investigating, while Masira, rather good-natured if not a little thick, gets a bit excited at being able to show off his salvaging skills. Meanwhile, down below, the underwater trio are investigating the wreckage. Luffy has found something. Zoro finds a sword that is rusted into nothing, and Sanji reflects on the wreckage of a room decimated by spears. They find an empty treasure chest too, but their exploration is interrupted as Masira's salvaging operation goes into full swing. Nami, Usopp, and Chopper watch in awe as the crew performs this salvaging operation, and then see Masira inflate the wreckage using nothing but his own breath. Yep, Robin was completely wrong. Raising this giant ship is more than possible. They're doing it right now. Masira catches wind of the crew aboard the wreckage and dives down, quickly punching out a giant sea creature to demonstrate his strength before bursting into the now inflated wreckage, which, as an aside, shouldn't it be filled with Masira's exhale, i.e. mostly carbon dioxide? Either way, he quickly forgets his anger as he mishears Luffy, but they all forget everything once the ship gets chomped by a giant sea turtle. On the surface, the two crews react, well, Robin just immediately assumes they're dead in her deadpan way, though she could be joking. She does have a history of dark humor. As for Nami, well, I read it as her not really being concerned about the three's safety, as in she probably doesn't actually think that they're in danger, otherwise I'm sure she'd probably react a fair bit differently than how she does here. Or Oda's just playing it for comedy. The Masira pirates in the meantime are rallying to save their captain, but the mood changes as darkness suddenly covers the sea. Nami checks the time. It's far too early for it to be dark like this. The three divers have made it back safely though, and they tell the crew to leg it. But Masira catches up to them, enraged that another crew has encroached on his salvaging territory. But then he turns to see it, as do Luffy and the rest of the crew, and they all look on in fear, even the giant turtle that dwarfs both their ships. Oda treats us to another beautiful double-page spread as giant shadowy figures with wings fill the sky, in their hands the same shape as the spears that pierced the sunken ship. They dwarf all who look on, and as they raise their spears, the Straw Hats row as fast as they can to escape the darkness and the shadows. It's only been a few chapters, and for the Straw Hats a few hours, and they all recount the crazy day they've had so far. And Masira is there too, but not for long. Now, it's our turn. These first few chapters are our introduction to the Skypiea saga, and I've mentioned some key things, Robin's introduction, the impossible being proven possible, but what are some other interesting things we can extract? First is that continued item of note that is carried over from the Alabasta saga, the continuing damage to the Merry. Though this time, the crew seems to be taking notice of the Merry's less than stellar state. First, Usopp very quietly and gently asking Nami to take it easy on the ship, and then after Masira lands on the Merry, Zoro is concerned that he'll wreck the Merry further, and Oda makes sure to note the hasty post-Wapol repairs taking some additional damage. If the last saga is any indicator, Skypiea will continue the pattern of Merry receiving damage, with the ship's accumulating damage becoming front of mind for the crew. Then there's Oda dropping hints about what lies in wait in Skypiea, setting up the mystery of the island in the clouds. First is the map Luffy found, showing an island with a structure in the center of it, some tribal-looking imagery, and a bridge to a more cloud-looking island with more buildings. There is also a large octopus and serpent looking as if they dwell in the waters, though that could just be illustration, who knows. We do see a giant sea snake as the trio make their way underwater, so one in the Sky Sea isn't out of the question. Next is what they find aboard the wreckage. There's that strange device that Luffy finds that looks unlike anything we've seen in the series, and then also the spears that Sanji comes across, which neatly links to Oda's big double-page reveal of the giant shadowy figures carrying spears of the same design. Who are these shadowy figures with wings? Why did they do what they did to the ship? What do those shadows mean? We need to remember what we learned last saga about Oda's writing habit. He'll show us something in a way that isn't important first, though a daunting double-page spread feels pretty important to me, so he can use it again later for greater effect. Alright, so Oda has framed the upcoming saga. Robin, impossible becoming possible, damage to the Merry, and the mystery of Skypiea. So the next chapter and the last one we'll cover is Oda setting up their next destination. They need to figure out how to get to the Sky Island. Unfortunately, everything that Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji brought back from the wreckage was useless in figuring out how to get there, but thankfully we've got someone with a bit more guile aboard, as Robin proves her usefulness to the crew by nabbing an eternal pose from Masira's crew. The eternal pose points to Jaya, and Oda quickly gives us a comedic conversation to establish, number 1, don't worry, the log pose won't reset if we go to Jaya if we're not there for long, and number 2, we need to go to Jaya to figure out how to get to Skypiea since it's our only lead. And so with a goal in mind, the Straw Hats set sail for Jaya, and Oda introduces us to what Jaya will bring. As they enter Jaya's climatic zone, seagulls are shot down and land aboard the ship. Chopper quickly deduces that the shooter is straight ahead in the direction of Jaya. Nami says that's impossible, which is one thing, but then our resident sniper Usopp affirms. How could someone see so far? What kind of gun could shoot all that way? What kind of sniper could do that? Usopp is the best sniper we know, albeit he doesn't use traditional firearms, and if he's saying not in his "I'm going to deny this because it scares me" way, but in a calm, genuine, nah, not possible sort of way, well... Oh, wait, hang on. It's that word again, impossible. So of course we zoom in on Jaya and see the shooter, confirming that he shot with intent, and there's something about him that looks familiar. That silhouetted look at Blackbeard's crew we saw back in Drum Island. Is it coincidence? He's saying something about fate too. Curious. We haven't got much time to dwell on it though, as the Merry and crew catch a glimpse of Jaya and a town that looks like a resort, from a distance at least. But as they pull to shore, they see all the different pirate ships, but pirates surely wouldn't anchor so openly, would they? No way, right? No way? That sounds like a way of saying impossible, which means indeed, as the narrator describes, this is a lawless town where ruffians gather. But the name and moniker of the town is what should be noted. Mock Town, the town of derision. A fitting place to be in a saga where impossible becomes possible, a town where attempting the impossible will surely be derided. We see a few new faces, first a champion grappler who has knocked down a member of the Roshio gang, and the guy who says it, well, as an Aussie, as soon as he says bloke, the bogan in me comes out. The other day, I saw a bloke beat Roshio at cards. Roshio cut the poor blighter down where he sat, he's the devil he is. Alright, let's turn the accent down. We then see this Roshio, an intimidating looking fellow with the moniker The Executioner, sporting a 42 million berry bounty, higher than when Luffy entered the Grand Line. But this 42 million bounty haver is nothing when compared to his poker opponent, Bellamy the Hyena, with a 55 million berry bounty. Bellamy is ruthless and unreasonable. For having beaten him at cards, Bellamy stabs Roshio through the hand, breaks a bottle on his head while shooting him in the leg, and then Squarus, to be assumed to be a member of Bellamy's crew, lights Roshio on fire before Roshio falls through a high window. As we get a close-up on Bellamy's crazed expression, we understand what lawless means. On this island, where people act based on bounties, where they'll avoid confrontation if the bounty is high, the person with the highest bounty is king, and as far as we know, that person is Bellamy, a law unto himself. Well, he was until Luffy and Zoro came ashore, although Zoro and Luffy aren't actually aware of their new bounties just yet. We've seen what having a high bounty means for Luffy in regards to the Marines pursuing him, but what does it mean to have a high bounty among pirates? And is that sniper with a familiar silhouette really a part of Blackbeard's crew? If so, is Blackbeard here? And how will the town of derision react to a pirate crew attempting to get to an island in the sky? Oda has provided a strong setup for the whole saga, and for our brief touchdown in Jaya, giving us mysteries, goals, and questions, is setting up a story for impossibilities to become reality and getting us ready for an adventure. And we'll continue this next time, a short intro to be sure, but that's only because the next part is very important, containing a scene so iconic that it's even included in the latest One Piece anime opening, so get ready for me to go into that in depth. Was there any setup that I missed? I think I covered the main parts, but I always feel as if Oda's managing to sneak something past me. Let me know in the comments. Thank you for joining me at the start of a new One Piece saga. Remember, it's not I attempt new things, it's we attempt new things. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a fruitful day.